Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So how many of you guys recognize this guy right off the top of the bat? And Cindy didn't. Cindy was like, no, I don't know.
No, he doesn't look like my grandpa. I don't know who he is.
No, he doesn't. I wouldn't say he looks pure good or pure evil.
No, he's kind of indifferent looking, sort of.
Yeah, there's an indifferent look. So how many of you guys would recognize this face? Da, da, da.
Bingo!
Okay, so it's the same guy, right? And of course, with the aid of some makeup, some modern technology there.
No, he just didn't age very well at all.
No, well, I wouldn't say so, yeah, but it depends on how old he is. He might be millennia old.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, this is over here, the Emperor, the evil Emperor, Emperor Palpatine, and here he is as Senator Palpatine, earlier on in the Star Wars universe. Isn't it so funny? Isn't it so funny?
Sorry, that's a good one. That took a moment to hit me. Delayed reaction there, guys.
Isn't it funny how apparent reality mimics the movies, right? I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a resemblance. I don't know if they're related or not.
We don't know. We don't know if it's grandpa and grandpa or what. It's something similar, though.
Interesting, though, is it not? And then, again, we've seen so many different looks from different public figures, like the popes, for instance, and of course the president, right? So you guys recognize this face, right? Yeah, we've talked about the ever-changing face of Joe Biden, and it really has changed. I mean, whoa, man, am I getting dizzy?
Yeah, because they don't want you talking about it. That happens to me a lot. Like when we do these shows, they get me. And then I get exhausted after the videos.
Yeah, and I'm becoming more Cindy-like every day as the energies, again, we're going more into the photon belt. So our abilities are awakening. And, I've always been more of an energy pusher. My natural gift, I would say, is the ability to collect and gather the life force. But now I'm getting more of Cindy's gifts.
Well, he's being refined. So the guide said that he is going through a balancing issue where he's getting more sensitive, and over time it does take a long time to balance your sensitivity. It just takes time.
He gave a speech yesterday, I believe it was at UConn, University of Connecticut, my old state, and it was shocking to see just how he looked and the energy that comes off. Now, let's look at this.
I wanted them to see the ability of the human mind to rationalize cannot be underestimated.
A lot of energy there, forceful energy, right? I mean, sometimes he mumbles, stumbles, bumbles, but look at this one, and is it me, or? And I know our emotions can definitely change the energy we're giving off, for sure.
We have fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago. Fewer. Not more, fewer.
Ouch. Ouch. That's painful.
We have fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago. Fewer. Not more, fewer. We have fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago. Fewer. Not more, fewer. We have fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago. Fewer. Not more, fewer.
Just the shape. Just the shape alone. It just, the it just seems like the whole forehead's bigger, the eyes, the whole structure looks different. And boy, that energy coming off is pretty damn painful. And you see this comment, run.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. This is him. I mean, can just, being in a bad mood that day change the shape of your head? Well, when you start looking at all these different photos, he looks totally different from time to time. Totally different. We all change as we age. That's a given. We all change. But, in the position of such prominence, many people will say, well, maybe there's body doubles. Maybe there's body doubles. Remember the video we did going way back to the first Bush presidency, Papa Bush, and the lady that basically was wearing a mask and totally fooled him, and then she took the mask off. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
I mean, what was that? About 3 weeks ago we covered that, and he didn't know. And that was, gosh, we're going back to, I don't know if that was somewhere around 1990-ish, I want to say. That was 30 plus years ago. Think about the technology now. And then, of course, we have clones and the whole idea of cloning, which is a reality. I mean, look at that. Look at the face.
Fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago. Fewer. Not more, fewer.
Oof, oof, oof. I don't feel any love coming from that at all. The energy that comes off is pretty.
It's painful.
Yeah, it's ouch. Mm-hmm. Interesting, the facial structure and the frown and everything, it reminds me of Ahriman. In Zoroastrianism, the demon of all demons and the source of all evil. Ahriman originally was a primordial desert spirit who became the personification of evil in Zoroastrianism. Now, what's interesting is I've seen two of these entities, clear as day. They were actually outside of our camper when we were camping in the desert across from Area 51 and the Nevada test site. Now, I was able to see them because I feel they were fourth density beings, but I was able to see them through the third eye and using the pineal gland. And so, but to me, they looked just exactly like this face. And really, not too far off from this face. And, we get into that whole idea of overshadowing with these certain beings. And it took a long time to find this photo again, because this photo is very accurate. This rendition is very, very accurate to actual beings that do exist and are some of the perhaps power brokers behind the scenes that we don't see, but we allude to.
Right. They're very triggering. I could say that.
Yeah, so we won't keep that up because a ton of you could not stand that.
Right.
It's not just us. This one right here, USA Patriot Mom says, who is this? There's something odd about this face. More people are recognizing this, and even people that might even have a completely fundamentalist viewpoint, and so they're not going to view it as an interdimensional being overshadowing somebody. They're going to view it as a demonic being overshadowing somebody, or just simply say, I don't know what the heck is going on, but something isn't right here.
No, it's just really, really wrong, and this is what you would call an overshadowing.
And it's interesting to see, the shape of the face. And again, it reminds me of Ahriman. And it also reminds me of the emerald tablets of Thoth. And that big question, are reptilians the owners of the world? As we know, it's really a fascinating read. to go through this, because they do talk all about this. They talk about, the holographic universe, and in this particular article, it's again equating it with the biblical perspective, and we shouldn't be really so much arguing over whether we're going to label something a demon or an interdimensional extraterrestrial. Let's just agree that they're there, for one.
Yeah.
And they're influencing our whole reality, most definitely, the dark controllers. And again, there's some interesting ways they phrase things in here. So and it does talk about the cycles within cycles and hybrids and things like that. And they talk about the fact that the way they can influence us. Now, when we're talking about the more control, more of the top of the pyramid, not really the ultimate top. Because when we look at the beings that we talk about and call the EGG, they are of our density. They're of the same density. So, there can be complete interactions with them of a very, very physical nature.
Oh, yeah, very.
So now when we talk about the Anunnaki, who the EGG were under, who the EGG rebelled against, saying we're not going to physically do all the slave work. Now the Anunnaki are more fourth density for the most part. They're fourth density, so they're basically one notch up the vibrational spectrum. And we would see them at certain times, depending on where the Earth is in the cycle of the yugas. They could appear to be physically flesh and blood to us, as real as you or I. As we had dropped down into third density, they no longer appeared flesh and blood visible to us. The DRACO, are the ones that are over both of those groups. And they are mostly fourth density beings. Those are the ones that overshadow, so to speak, but others can overshadow too. And it's a form of possession. And these passages, this is reading from this article, explain that the reptilians reside in another range of frequencies outside the visible spectrum of the human being, and that to manipulate this reality, they must have a body with which to do it. Only through man could they live in this world. The phrase "only with blood could form a being" explains why the reptilian hybrids occupy positions of power at present and are obsessed with the rituals of some very, very horrible things there that we won't go into. But it is through certain bloodlines that they do control. And again, this gets down to that kingship is given from on high, not from source. No, not from God with the big G. From basically these beings, and from the EGG in the physical sense. Their bloodlines are the ones that we see all the time. Their offspring. They're hybrids, so to speak. So they're not going to be able to hold the charade anymore. Their true energies, their true energies are becoming very apparent. And you know what? It's not love-based.
Not one bit.
Nope. So wanted to share that with you guys. And there's a lot of, okay, I think we probably lost this one. There's a lot of video out that it's becoming so obvious what's going on here to so many people. And this is just another one that's showing that. We'll move on. Showing another version of the speech that was out there yesterday. Now, coming back to what's going on in the world, over in Alabama, they're telling kids you better eat breakfast before you come in, because they're being hit with food shortages. And they're warning of remote school days where, hey, we might as well just have you guys stay home because there ain't going to be any food here to feed you.
And that's really, really concerning because it's always been the schools that have had the food there because parents had a really hard time, waking up that early and cooking a hot breakfast. So the schools kind of stepped in and said, hey, we'll help because kids function better with a little food in their tummy. It's never been an issue. And then all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, this is something that's been coming on, but now it's becoming more tangible. Now it's in the black and white. Now it's something everybody has to look at and read and say, oh, wow, what's actually happening.
Yeah, so this is basically what they were telling people. As you know, breakfast and lunch is served daily in our schools. Previous weeks, we have not received our food deliveries due to suppliers who are short on supplies. Drivers and even warehouse employees, school officials said in a Facebook post on Saturday. And it was interesting. We saw a little thing that was showing Facebook, FB, and Instagram. Put them together. What do you got? FBI.
FBI.
People are catching on. People are waking up. This is huge. Breakfast may be impacted some more so than lunch in the coming weeks. If possible, we ask that you feed your student prior to coming to school or try to send a snack. And, this was where the guides weeks ago, they've been telling us forever about the shortages. And then, a few weeks back, they said that, things are going to seriously manifest now. And here we see the U.S. Treasury Deputy Secretary warns that these shortages are going to continue until something happens. And you guys could read the headline there. This is out of RT. And as we're looking at all the ships piled up, and there's so many different videos out there also. I watched a video yesterday up in Washington State of a guy at a shipyard, and he was pointing out all the trucks, some full, tons empty, waiting for a load. And he was pointing to cranes that weren't being operated at all, not offloading ships, cargo ships, just sitting there and nothing happening. And then there were a few people that were refuting it, saying, no, they're working. They're just not working 24/7. They just are not fully staffed, but they are working. But when you have such a backload, as is pretty obvious, why are they not all working? And then again, well, because so many people are leaving their jobs. So many people are not going along with, the program. And, this is why we have some of the biggest drops in employment. It's a totally different scenario than anything we've ever seen before. And, at a time when we need food being produced and distributed, that whole end of it, is something that we don't always think about, the distribution end, but now we're waking up to that fact. Farmers in California are abandoning their fields. Again, we got the drought, we have the shipping crisis, we have, the wildfires, we got all sorts of chaos going on at exactly the same time. As of October 12th, 100% of the state of California is in some form of drought. Now, you know how important California is in the bigger picture as far as producing food. I mean, that's a damn important state.
Mm-hmm.
And here you got 100% in some form of drought, 93% in severe to exceptional, 87% in extreme to exceptional, 45% in exceptional. This is most definitely heading towards what we were saying with the Dust Bowl situation. And when we look at what can be done technologically, I think that this whole thing could be changed in a heartbeat if there was a will.
Well, yeah, when there's a will, it's just that it's pointed in a different direction. The agenda is not to make things easier or better on any one of us.
Yeah, and again, I gotta, say again, where's the heart of the leadership of this world? Is it based in love? Is it based in oneness and understanding? Again, do you think the leadership is based in love, oneness, understanding? What really is going on? And meanwhile, flooding in West China destroys agricultural production. Yeah, continuous rainfall in some areas over there has caused the rivers to overflow, and it just literally washing away crops. Autumn harvest at severe loss. You know, it's amazing what you can do. And shout out for our friend Scott while I'm thinking about it. He lives in Massachusetts. He's got 2 acres in a suburban neighborhood. And he produces enough food probably to feed 100 people. I mean, literally, it's incredible. On 2 acres of land, the amount of stuff he produces is insane. And again, this is in Massachusetts. He's, you know, close to Springfield. It's amazing what can be done even in suburbia.
I sure can. I mean, he's such a shining example of, some dedication and some will and some effort
And a
and
little green thumb.
yeah, a little green thumb. You can do so much.
Yeah, like him, and then our friend Dave in the UK who lives in an apartment. He lives in an apartment in a city in southeastern UK. And he's another one that is basically, I mean, he's in an urban environment, and he could pretty much survive without, relying on the stores. It's amazing what can be done. And supermarkets in the German state of Hesse can now block entry for certain people. This is, very, very disconcerting. The same thing is manifesting over in Australia, where you're going to have certain people that are not going to have access to food. I mean, that's one of the most basic, you would think it should be a human right that if there is food available, everybody should be able to partake in it. Think about when we talk about money as a form of energy, and we talk about all the energy that's blocked up and locked up by these billionaires, this elite class at the very, very top of the pyramid. It's a travesty. And the higher beings, like when we're talking about fifth density, and we're talking about beings like, again, the Galactic Federation and stuff, they view that not in a positive light, because it's not like that on those densities. This whole monetary system, people are hoping for Nasara and Gesara and hoping for a revamping. Many are hoping that we'll go to a cryptocurrency base. Many are hoping for different things. But you know what? Anything where people can be manipulated is not going to be something that you're going to find on the higher densities. You're just not going to find it, because they operate out of compassion and love and understand the oneness of everything, where instead of just ignoring somebody that's starving on a street, maybe homeless, they wouldn't have that.
Oh, no, not at all. They operate in a harmonious way.
Yeah, so they're not going to have a system that's like that. They're not going to have a system that's going to be based around hoarding, or he who has the most toys at the end wins. It's not like that at all. That's so alien to their thinking.
Well, they have a deep understanding of harmony and energy, and if someone is knowingly throwing the energy out of balance, they understand they need to pull that energy back into balance because of the widespread consequence.
And the thing they would do too is they would do it with a gentleness too, instead of locking somebody up in the brig or locking them out of a supermarket. They would do it in a gentle way of creating balance and harmony. And they don't operate through lies and deception and coercion. Bribes don't work when you're on that level. And unfortunately, the politicians that we have in this world are not above, in many cases, not above being coerced or using coercion. And so, we're going to have massive, massive amounts of people in many key industries, including the military, that are going to be leaving and are leaving. As of Wednesday, 94% of active duty sailors are, what they would use that term there. They're completely up to par with the dates for men. Let's just say it that way. 99% have received the first. Yeah, we'll leave that at that. And again, we have so many openings when it comes to education, when it comes to law enforcement. San Francisco puts nearly 200 first responders on leave while crime is going through the roof. Yes. And by the way, we had our first major winter storm that shut down highways. This was up in the northern tier, like Montana and up in that area, which is also worsening the supply chain issues. Everything is just piling on. And you have here hundreds of Boeing workers in Washington State out, and they're not working. One of the things when we talk about manufacturing, of which this country has, lost the bulk of its manufacturing capacity. Where is most of the world's manufacturing located right now? Well, in the fine dining ware country. As I've shared, my mother was very much an avid historian, especially when it comes to everything World War II. And, she would say how Bridgeport, Connecticut, where she grew up, was the Essen of the United States. And, Essen is an industrial city in Germany that put out some very, very high quality war machine parts. And so why, in some ways, besides the will of the controllers, did the Allies win instead of the Axis? Well, part of it was all about resupplying the front and having the ability to keep pushing on and create new weapons of destruction. And so the USA at that point in time was a sleeping giant that World War II most definitely woke up and brought to prominence. And then of course since that time period, it's been the primary military policing force of the powers that be in the world, and now it's shifting over to the fine dining ware country because that's exactly the next step in their plans. And meanwhile, we have empty shelves, and there's a particular hashtag that's growing, Empty Shelves Joe. And it just gets into just how bad the supply chain is. And now that's becoming mainstream. People like our friend David, Adapt 2030, who we have conversations with on a regular basis about these things, and others as well. He's been saying, this is coming. And even though he's in the know, and he's off doing seminars all around the world talking about these issues, it still, I think, shocks even him. It's like when something's coming, it doesn't hit you till it's really here.
That's right. People might be feeling that they're emotionally prepared, but they don't actually physically go through the motions, and that can create another whole chain of events and a whole chain of chemicals and chemical reactions when you fall into a panic. So that's what makes things different.
So yeah, definitely we had a very, very dear friend who I thought was more aware than was. I was just like, don't you realize what's going on? Because when you ask somebody, how well stocked are you? How long could you go without going to the store? If the answer is less than a month, that's not good. Even the government years ago now, like 3 years ago, said be ready for 6 months without the grid. to be self-sufficient for 6 months. I would take that and times it by 5, personally, which is what we've kind of gotten from the guides is, things are going to be pretty chaotic until I think the chaos is going to peak in that 2025 zone. So we've got to keep working towards being self-sufficient right now as best as you can. And again, Dave in the UK, growing a ton of food in an apartment. He's got food in wash tubs. He's got food in old pots and old pans. He's got food in, hats. It's crazy. Bookshelves. Seriously. And he's got them strung up from rafters and it's just insane. But, he can live without leaving his apartment kind of indefinitely. We went and we picked maybe a dozen peppers because we're blessed to be in a spot where we're going to keep getting stuff probably for another month solidly, and then we have greenhouse that we'll be putting up, which now this morning it was cooler, so we could get a touch of that. But for the most part, it still felt like summer every day since summer began here back in, I would say, early April. It feels like it. We have like 6 months of summer, I would say. But just last night, I used a couple of peppers in dinner, and all the seeds that came out of the peppers, I saved them. I'm going to be able to grow another 40 or 50 pepper plants from just 2 peppers. Think about how Mother Nature provides.
She is. She provides. She's so abundant and overly abundant to the point where who could go hungry if you just keep the seeds from what you eat?
Yeah, most definitely. So, and now I'm getting an idea on how many do I need, because we have a big variety. From spicy ones to bell peppers to different types of bell peppers to Anaheim and poblanos and the green chilies that are so popular in New Mexico, jalapenos, of course, some red ones that I didn't realize how spicy they were. Holy crap. A whole variety. And again, I'm saving the seeds. So I have a little cup. I just put the seeds in as I'm cleaning them for a rainy day. And then we have a whole bunch of bags with labels where we could label things. We could just sort them into bags, label them, and just file them away to be used later. Think about doing things like that, my friends. And I just wanted to share how our history that they've told us is, again, completely being revised every single day. This is why really you got to go within. Find your own truth. Now, the thing that hit me of this title, it says, not out of Japan, Native American origins debunked by genetics and skeletal biology. And they're talking again about the Bering Land Bridge, was that, from what I've read, it wasn't really out of Japan in the first place. It was more out of Mongolia or Siberia, where the first ones that they said crossed the land bridge. Two particular genetic families being predominant came over, 10, 12,000 years ago, 12, 15,000. These numbers keep changing is the thing. And there was nobody in the Americas, until they came. There was nobody in the Americas, and they inhabited the Americas. Well, everything keeps getting rewritten, totally rewritten. As we were talking about finding, human remains and evidence of a lot of things that are totally contradictory to everything we've been taught about. The fact that humans were here 23,000 years ago. Go 10,000 years back farther. They were way before that. Why would we not have a portion of the planet populated? Let's just say that. And the other thing is they want to cover up the technology that was available. The fact that there had been way more advanced as far as technology goes and way, way more advanced spiritually. Civilizations here on the planet than us. We are not the pinnacle, not at all, not even close. And this is the inversion. Again, Darwin himself was a 33rd degree Mason. his whole Darwinian evolution, many people will throw out evolution because they only know of Darwinian evolution. But evolution is real, and evolution is how everything is. Everything is constantly evolving. Nothing stays the same. Nothing stays the same. Everything is always changing. And here you have fossils that are at least 6 million years old, these footprints. Humanoid, not Homo sapiens, sapiens, of course. But, this is 2.5 million years farther back minimum than what they were previously thinking. And we keep finding this stuff. Mm-hmm. Everything is always being rewritten. So I asked Cindy, I said, who were the first intelligent humanoid beings here?
So when Mike asked that, what they showed me are these beings. They have this very beautiful skin, translucent skin, but they're not like standing upright. They're still, I guess you could say, kind of like a monkey might look, but far from monkey-ish. They held a lot of light in their body. I mean, these beings literally kind of glowed. They're very, very beautiful, very bluish hue. Very strong energies, very benevolent energies, very kind beings, taking care of each other. But that's what they showed me when Mike asked that question, when everything was able to start carrying some type of life form. That's what was here.
And that was way back.
Oh yeah, it's uncountable. It's way back.
Yeah, it's way back. And in fact, I didn't put it here, but there was an article that was on Sign of the Times that it was a link saying that the universe never was. There was never a time when the universe didn't exist, basically. And I didn't open it up. But what we have when we look again, going to the tradition that comes out of the Indus Valley, and the Harappan civilization, I think, is fascinating because, again, this is a civilization that predates the Sumerian civilization. They want everything to start with the Sumerian civilization. Why? Because that's the origin of this whole system that we see on the planet. It's their system. So they want things to start really with the Abrahamic tradition. That's really where they want people to think everything starts with, but it's a distortion. And it's not accurate. There's been so many different species intelligent on this planet, and everything has its own intelligence as well. How intelligent do you think a praying mantis is? When you look at a praying mantis, how intelligent might it be? It might be as intelligent as us. Now, it doesn't have a vehicle that necessarily enables it to do things that we can do in this reality. And again, it's tiny in comparison to us. But the intelligence might be there. There is the thought. We know dolphins' brains are larger than us, and there is the thought that they're way more advanced than us spiritually. They just have a different vehicle to get around in.
I've read articles about women who would go into the ocean to give birth, and the dolphins come and actually circle them and make dolphin noises and relieve the pain of the human. It's really incredible what these beings can do.
And one of our dear family members made a comment because they were brought up so much in a Abrahamic tradition that to them the thought of anything but simply you die, you're kind of in a limbo, and you're waiting to be resurrected on the last day, back reunited with your physical body that will be in an imperishable state, and you're going to exist on Earth forever. That whole concept is so foreign to the higher densities that I think it's extremely obvious to them that it's a total distortion, because that's not the way of the universe. That's not the way of the multiverse. That's not the way of source. Everything always evolves. You don't just stay at one point. That's totally the opposite to the whole purpose of everything. Creation is all about growth, progress, evolving, discovering, learning. To stay in one spot, to basically even just stay on one planet, is not in Source's plans, because Source allows everything to go, and that's why we have, well, that's why we have chaos, but that's also why we have growth and the ability for unlimited possibilities. It's just a matter of choice and where you're going to resonate with.
Right. And, as we grow and learn and understand how to read our own information, these things are going to be brought to light. How, we can look back, and so many things that we were taught as children in science class are just simply not true, and so that kind of tells you how we have been sort of baited all along to have one set of beliefs to help control us.
The other thing that's fascinating when we go back farther, like right now we've been dominated by a patriarchal society, male dominant. When we go back farther, we start finding matriarchal societies that were female dominant. And these are the older societies. And these are also the societies where, in many cases, there were no weapons of war mass stored in what we would call in modern terms like ammo supply dumps, things like that. Of course, it might have been loaded with spears and bows and arrows and slingshots and things like that in certain time frames. But in the matriarchal societies, things were done differently. This is, again, part of the distortion that we have in this world where everything has been so aggressive, testosterone driven, male dominant, and putting down the female at every single way possible. And this is part of what was the Cultural Revolution of the 60s, which got waylaid. Everything gets waylaid because as soon, as we've spoken with Yeshua, as soon as they get a chance to do their damage control, they do it. They do it. And so when, again, 325 AD, Council of Nicaea was the beginning of the formation of the Catholic Church, the beginning of the formation of the Bible itself. There were hundreds of Gospels in circulation. Hundreds. Whatever wasn't accepted and going to be the official version was destroyed. And for so many of these writings that we didn't have again until in the 20th century, when we discovered Dead Sea Scrolls and we discovered the Nag Hammadi and a lot of the Gnostic texts, that was just lost for like 1900 years, well, 1600 years since the Council of Nicaea time, just gone. So the only version you had was the version that came from the controllers. And now, we're learning how it's been all about control. And how in the past we can get along with each other. We can be unified. And we're going to be again. It's just simply a matter of understanding how we've been controlled and then saying, no, we're not going along with it. No. Do I believe that you have my best interest in mind? Well, I mean, would I believe that some of these darker energies, such as, this Ahriman from Zoroastrianism, is a benevolent being? You just gotta feel the energy and know. And people are in droves. They are waking up, absolutely waking up to what is going on. And that is beautiful, because ultimately everything is going to change totally. As people wake up and say, no, we're done with this. We're done with this. We're done with the system. You can't put a Band-Aid on this system. The whole system needs to become a thing of the past.
It does, but it's going to take time, and it might be painful, because sometimes when things change and things evolve, there can be growing pains, because you're bringing in new perspectives, which means you have to allow the old things that no longer serve us and no longer help us, they have to fall away. And can be a very scary thing to do, because maybe we're holding on to it just because that's what we know. This belief has kept me safe for this long. I don't want to let that go.
Again, it's Linus with his blanket. He can't let it go. can't let it go, but we need to let it go. There's a time when we need to move forward, need to move on. We need to put on our big boy pants or big girl pants, so to speak. So we want to thank everybody for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We really couldn't do it without you in these times of demonization. Most definitely. Please do make sure you are subscribed and share as much as you can. Wake people up. The quicker we wake up the world, the quicker we shift out of this paradigm. It's so imperative. And also thank everybody that has been using medicinal foods. There's a link that you guys could use. It does support the channel. It's at the top of every video. And it also will bring some really good, healthy products into your home and into your body.
Yes.
As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.